Greetings, good people. I hope I haven't thrown you off too much. This was supposed to be a Monday morning video, and it's going to be posted on Tuesday this week. So I'm glad that Allie, our new intern, is filling in on Monday for me. So this coming weekend, I'm going to be talking about accepting God's will in our lives with greater trust. And I'm going to just whet your appetite on that. It's a big theme, and it's one that I have to say that I'm not sure I'm the best one to be speaking about it, because I struggle with this a lot as well. And I think any of us who tend to be assertive and self-directive find it harder to just have a kind of a simple, lasting, consistent trust that no matter what's happening, God's involved in it and God's in charge. But that's what I'm going to be talking about this weekend based on our readings as well. And what I'd like to do for you just in this brief video is share a few thoughts with you that I found really inspiring just in my preparation for this in the last couple of weeks. A book that I read probably back in my earliest years as a priest, so 35 plus years ago, was called Abandonment to Divine Providence. I'm going to put this right in the screen. We have copies of this actually in our book rack in the entry of the church if you're up here for any of our masses. It's one that's on that book series that we have there. It's a book that goes way back, and it's kind of a classic on spirituality. But his whole point is that we can abandon ourselves with absolute trust, knowing that God has a plan personally for each of us. He's working each and every event in our lives for our good. Now, obviously, we don't see that much of the time, and we don't grasp that readily. Sometimes we have real clear moments where we say, well, it's obvious what God is doing there. But especially in times of trial and distress, we find ourselves struggling with that a lot. So let me just read two excerpts for you from this book that I think will give you kind of a glimpse of where I'm going to be going with that this weekend, and a challenge for you and for me in living this out. So he writes, "There is never a moment when God does not come forward in the guise of some suffering or some duty, and all that takes place within us, around us, and through us both includes and hides his activity. Yet because it's invisible, we're usually taken by surprise and do not recognize it is he. At every event, we should exclaim, 'It is the Lord.' Nothing could happen to us without our accepting it as a gift from God." So again, some things are easy to do that with, the blessings especially, to be able to say, oh, God's working here. But especially when we're taken back by something that isn't going well at all, or that is obviously tragic, to be able to say, but God is working in this. God is still here. So he goes on to say, too many people never stop finding fault with God's activities in a manner they would not dare use toward the most incompetent workmen. Think about that phrase. The times we complain about what's happening in our lives and are unwilling to accept that God might be allowing this to happen for a purpose. He goes on to say, what we really want to do is restrict God's work so that it conforms to the rules and boundaries that our limited reason considers suitable. In other words, we know better than God, don't we? And yet we know we really don't. God sees a much bigger picture. So abandoning to God's plan, trusting that God is actively involved in every moment of our life, and working good out of every moment of our life, and that nothing is happening to us by accident. Wouldn't that relieve a lot of stress in our life? Wouldn't that help us live with a kind of inner peace that would make it make our lives much more attractive to other non-Christians as well as Christians? Because it's true that we are accepting that Jesus is more powerful than anything around us, and that he's holding us and carrying us in his care. So that's what I leave with you today, abandoning our lives into his embrace, knowing that we're in good hands when we're with the Lord. God bless you. Pray for me as I too continue to strive to do this better and better in my life. God bless.